Have you ever stopped to think about why, despite having more technology, more convenience, and more opportunity than any generation before us, so many people today still feel powerless the moment they wake up? Why anxiety rules the mind? Why procrastination steals ambition? Why millions live trapped in cycles of distraction, exhaustion, and silent self-betrayal? The average person now checks their phone within the first few minutes of waking, immediately surrendering their attention to notifications, dopamine, and external noise. Harvard researchers have warned that constant digital overstimulation is eroding focus, increasing stress, and weakening our ability to sustain discipline. Stanford studies on habit formation reveal something even darker. The modern brain is being conditioned for comfort, not resilience. And that is the true crisis. Not lack of intelligence, not lack of potential, but the slow death of internal structure. The truth is, the problem was never that you are incapable. The problem is that your mind has been trained to obey weakness. And you are not alone in this. For centuries, civilizations rose and fell on one timeless principle: those who mastered themselves survived, while those ruled by impulse collapsed. Nowhere was this understood more clearly than in feudal Japan. During an age of endless war where hesitation meant death and softness guaranteed defeat, one philosophy emerged that transformed ordinary men into living weapons: Bushido. The warrior's path. Not motivation, not temporary inspiration, but absolute self-mastery. Among its greatest practitioners stood Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's most feared, undefeated samurai. A man who survived over 60 duels, not because he was born stronger, but because he built a mind that could not be shaken by fear, pain, distraction, or doubt. Musashi understood a truth that modern society desperately tries to avoid: discipline is not emotional. It is structural. It is identity. A distracted mind is a conquered mind. A man who negotiates with weakness every morning has already lost before the day begins, and hesitation is death. In the final weeks of his life, Musashi wrote that one must think lightly of the self and deeply of the world. Why? Because the self seeks comfort. It seeks escape. It seeks excuses. But reality rewards only those who act. This ancient wisdom is more relevant today than ever before, because in a world addicted to speed, comfort, and stimulation, the rarest skill is no longer talent. It is control. In this video, you will discover the 10 sacred disciplines inspired by Musashi's philosophy, timeless principles designed to destroy procrastination, sharpen focus, eliminate mental weakness, and forge an identity that remains unbroken, under pressure. And to reveal these lessons, we will follow the story of Tishi, a young samurai born into status, gifted with perfect training, yet shattered in a single duel because his discipline was only performance. His downfall was not caused by lack of skill, it was caused by internal fragility. But through pain, solitude, and ancient warrior philosophy, he would rebuild himself into something far more dangerous: a man who could not be broken. Welcome to this channel where we build a brotherhood through timeless wisdom, ancient discipline, and the philosophies that forge unbreakable minds. If you are ready to master yourself, reclaim your focus, and destroy the habits keeping you weak, subscribe now and ring the notification bell, and comment below what weakness currently controls your life. Because after this video, you will never view discipline, pain, or your daily choices the same way again. The truth is, your greatest enemy has never been the world. It has always been the weaker version of yourself. And today, that war begins. Chapter 1. The Perfect Warrior Who Collapsed. In today's story, I'm going to tell you about a young man who appeared to have everything required to succeed, yet failed in the only moment that truly mattered. His name was Tishi Hayashi, 22 years old, born in Osaka Province in the spring of 1612, the heir to a respected samurai bloodline. From the age of 7, his life had been engineered for greatness. While other children played, Tishi trained: swordsmanship before sunrise, philosophy before sleep, 15 years of relentless instruction under elite masters, every movement refined, every strike sharpened, every ritual perfected. By all visible standards, he was flawless. He came from status. He had access to the finest training. He possessed discipline that others admired. And yet, his strength was fragile. Because what looked like discipline was in truth performance. On the day that would define him, over 300 witnesses gathered to watch Tishi enter the dueling circle. His armor pristine, his posture perfect, his technique beyond question. Across from him stood a wandering Ronin. No noble family, no prestigious school, no polished armor, no visible status, only worn clothing, a weathered wooden sword and silence. To the crowd this should have been easy, a formal prodigy against a nameless drifter. But the truth is, real battles do not test appearances, they expose foundations. The duel began. Tishi raised his blade exactly as he had practiced thousands of times. Perfect form, perfect stance, perfect preparation. But then, his opponent did nothing. No movement, no attack, no signal, just stillness. And in that stillness, Tishi's mind fractured. Doubt entered, fear whispered. Overthinking consumed him. His training vanished beneath hesitation. Then, in a single breath, the Ronin moved. One strike. Tishi's sword left his hands before he could even process defeat. 3 breaths, that was all it took. 15 years of preparation, erased in seconds. Not because Tishi lacked skill, but because his inner world had never been truly forged. The truth is, the problem was never his technique. It was his inability to act without mental resistance. And this is where most people live today. Not in physical battle, but in constant hesitation. They delay, they overthink, they seek comfort, they freeze before difficult action. Like Tishi, they appear capable, but collapse under pressure. That night, humiliated and shattered, Tishi walked away from Osaka. Away from his title, away from his family, away from the illusion of who he thought he was. Because sometimes, true transformation only begins when your false identity is destroyed. Chapter 2. The Collapse Beneath Perfection. For the next 3 days, Tishi wandered alone through the mountains. No servants, no family crest, no polished armor, only silence. For the first time in his life, there were no expectations to perform, and that terrified him more than defeat itself. Because when status is stripped away, what remains? Each step through the cold wilderness forced him to confront a truth he had spent 22 years avoiding. He did not know who he was without the approval of others. His entire identity had been built on external validation. His father's pride, his clan's reputation, his sensei's praise, his flawless image. But now, that image was shattered, and beneath it stood a young man exhausted not from battle, but from carrying the unbearable weight of pretending. Tishi had spent years mastering sword forms, yet his mornings were filled with hesitation. He trained daily, yet constantly feared failure. He looked disciplined, but internally he was negotiating with weakness every sunrise. And this is how most men suffer, not through visible destruction, but through silent collapse, like the modern man trapped in routines he hates, waking tired, checking distractions, avoiding discomfort, dreaming of greatness while repeating self-defeating patterns. Tishi's battle was ancient, but his suffering was timeless. He realized his true enemy had never been the Ronin. It was his own fragile mind, his dependence on certainty, his fear of imperfection, his addiction to appearing strong instead of becoming strong. The truth is, the problem was never his lack of skill. It was that his spirit had been softened by comfort. For years he had confused structure with strength, routine with resilience, performance with power. But real discipline is revealed only when pressure removes illusion. And under pressure, Tishi broke. His body was trained, but his identity was weak. Each night by the fire shame consumed him, not because he lost, but because deep down, he knew the Ronin had exposed something far worse than defeat. He had exposed the emptiness beneath Tishi's carefully constructed life. This is the moment every transformation begins, when excuses die, when false identities collapse. When a man is finally forced to face the brutal distance between who he pretends to be and who he truly is. Hungry, exhausted, and emotionally shattered, Tishi arrived at an isolated mountain shrine. He thought he was running from humiliation, but in truth, he was walking directly toward the destruction of his former self. Because before a warrior can be rebuilt, the weak man within him must first fall. Chapter 3. The Ronin in the Mountains. On the 4th morning, exhausted, hungry, and carrying the full weight of his shattered identity, Tishi arrived at a forgotten shrine hidden deep within the mountain forests. The air was cold, silent, ancien. For the first time in his life there were no crowds, no expectations, no reputation to protect, only stillness. And sitting beneath a weathered cedar tree was the man who had destroyed him, the Ronin, calm, unmoved, as if he had been waiting all along. Tishi's hand instinctively moved toward his sword pride still burning beneath his humiliation. But before anger could speak, the Ronin's voice cut through him. Sit. It was not a request. It was command without force. For reasons Tishi did not yet understand. He obeyed. For several minutes neither man spoke. Only wind moved. Only silence pressed. And then the question came. Why did you lose? Tishi's jaw tightened. Because you were faster. The Ronin shook his head. No, because you hesitated. Those words struck deeper than any blade. For years Tishi had blamed circumstances, technique, timing, pressure. But now, for the first time, someone had exposed the true fracture. His enemy was internal. The Ronin studied him carefully. Your form is beautiful, he said. Your training is polished. But beauty without inner stillness is decoration. Under pressure, your mind collapsed. You were trained to perform, not to endure. The truth is, Tishi had spent his life mastering appearances, but never mastering himself. And this is where everything changed. The Ronin introduced himself as Kensei, a wandering swordsman, a former disciple of Miyamoto Musashi, a man who had abandoned prestige in pursuit of something greater, true discipline, not technique, not status, not performance, but internal invincibility. Kensei explained that Musashi's greatest teachings were never merely about combat. They were about mastering hesitation, mastering emotion, mastering weakness. The sword is not the weapon, Kensei said. The mind is. For the first time, Tishi encountered a philosophy unlike anything his noble upbringing had taught him. Bushido, not as ceremony, but as psychological warfare against the weaker self. Kensei offered him no sympathy, no comfort, only truth. If you are willing to unlearn everything that made you fragile, he said, I will teach you the 10 disciplines that separate performers from warriors. 10 disciplines forged through solitude, pain, repetition, and absolute personal responsibility. In that moment, Tishi faced a choice: return home and rebuild the illusion, or destroy himself completely and become something stronger. He knelt, not before a master, but before truth. I am willing, he said. Kensei nodded once. Then we begin at dawn. And just like that, Tishi's real training finally started. Not the training of swordsmanship, but the far more brutal path, the reconstruction of identity itself. Chapter 4. The Philosophy of Small Daily War. Kensei did not begin Tishi's transformation with grand speeches. He began with the smallest actions imaginable. Wake immediately. Fold your bedding precisely. Stand correctly. Breathe with control. Strike once, then repeat. At first Tishi was confused. He had expected secret techniques, advanced combat forms, ancient warrior knowledge hidden from ordinary men. Instead, he was taught simplicity. Because Kensei understood something most people ignore. Great collapse begins with small neglect, and true mastery begins the same way. Through Kaizen, the ancient philosophy of continuous improvement, small disciplines, repeated daily, without negotiation. Men fail, Kensei said, because they worship dramatic change while neglecting daily structure. The truth is, weakness is rarely explosive. It is incremental, a delayed morning, a skipped training, a distracted hour, a surrendered promise. And over time, small failures become identity. But Kaizen reverses this. One deliberate act, one disciplined morning, one controlled emotion, one stronger decision at a time. This was not merely training Tishi's body, it was rebuilding his nervous system. Modern psychology now supports this principle completely. Behavioral researchers have found that sustainable transformation occurs not through massive life overhauls, but through small, repeatable actions that gradually reshape identity. Miyamoto Musashi understood this centuries earlier. He did not seek perfection overnight. He pursued relentless refinement. Every strike improved, every day sharpened, every failure adjusted. This is why Kensei forbade obsession with outcomes. Do not ask whether you are strong, he warned. Ask only whether you improved today. For Tishi, this changed everything. He stopped chasing impossible perfection. He stopped collapsing beneath massive expectations. Instead, he focused only on winning the next moment. Rise now, train now, endure now. And in doing so, something profound happened. His confidence stopped depending on emotion. It began depending on evidence. Proof. Daily proof. Kaizen transformed discipline from overwhelming burden into structured inevitability, because no mountain is conquered in one leap, only through repeated steps. This was Musashi's deeper lesson. A warrior is not forged through intensity alone. He is forged through consistency. Small actions, repeated endlessly, until discipline is no longer effort, but nature. Tishi had spent years trying to become extraordinary. Now, for the first time, he was learning how greatness is truly built, quietly, patiently, one small internal war at a time. Chapter 5. The Fire of Relapse. The first weeks under Kensei were not glorious. They were brutal. There were no dramatic victories, no instant breakthroughs, no sudden transformation. Only repetition, pain, failure. Every dawn Tishi rose before sunrise. Every morning his body resisted, his mind whispered excuses. Rest one more hour. You trained hard yesterday. You can begin tomorrow. And some mornings, he failed. Some mornings he hesitated. Some mornings weakness won. That was the true shock. Even after discovering the path, his old self still lived inside him. Because the truth is, transformation is not linear. Weakness does not vanish simply because you choose discipline. It fights back. Hard. Kensei never punished these failures with anger. Instead, he forced Tishi to confront something more painful: responsibility. Falling is not failure, Kensei said. Remaining down is. Each relapse became a mirror. Each hesitation exposed where his identity was still fragile. When emotions surged during combat drills, he lost control. When exhaustion peaked, he sought comfort. When pain sharpened, he wanted escape. Again and again, Tishi faced the same humiliating realization. He was not yet the man he wanted to become. He was still divided. Part warrior, part prisoner. But this is where ancient philosophy separated itself from modern motivation. Kensei did not teach Tishi to rely on inspiration. He taught systems, ritual, repetition, identity engineering. Rise without negotiation, move without emotion, train especially when resistance appears. Slowly, through daily unwanted action, something extraordinary began to happen. Neuroscience now confirms what warriors understood centuries ago: repeated behavior rewires the brain. Stanford researchers describe this as neuroplasticity, the process by which repeated action strengthens identity-based neural pathways. In simpler terms, what you repeat, you become. Tishi was no longer merely practicing discipline. He was constructing it, one painful day at a time. Every relapse became reinforcement. Every failure became data. Every setback became another fold in the steel. Weeks turned to months. The boy who once needed praise began training in silence. The young samurai who once collapsed under pressure began enduring discomfort without negotiation. Not perfectly, but consistently. And consistency is where power is born. Tishi learned that mastery was never about avoiding weakness forever. It was about refusing to surrender when weakness returned. Because true warriors are not those who never fall. They are those who rise faster each time. Again, and again, and again. This was Musashi's hidden truth. Discipline is not built in grand victories. It is forged in ordinary moments when quitting feels easier, and you continue anyway. Through rain, through doubt, through pain. Tishi was no longer chasing perfection. He was building something far more dangerous, an identity that relapse itself could no longer destroy. Chapter 6. The Warrior Brain. What Kensei taught Tishi in the mountains was not merely philosophy, it was neurological warfare. Long before modern science could name it, ancient warriors understood a brutal truth. The greatest battle is against the brain's instinct for safety. Each time Tishi hesitated before rising, each time fear froze his movement, each time pain tempted him to quit, a primitive force inside him was firing. The amygdala, the ancient survival center of the brain. Its purpose is simple: avoid danger, seek comfort, preserve energy. In battle, this system can save your life, but in daily life, unchecked, it becomes the architect of weakness. The amygdala does not care about greatness. It cares about survival. This is why most people procrastinate, why they avoid discomfort, why they return to distraction, indulgence, and routine, even when those habits destroy them. Their biology seeks immediate relief over long-term transformation. Kensei understood that if Tishi remained a servant to this system, he would always break under pressure. So his training targeted something higher: the prefrontal cortex, the decision-making center, the seat of discipline, self-control, and conscious action. Every time Tishi rose before dawn despite resistance, he strengthened it. Every time he endured pain without reacting, he strengthened it. Every time he acted despite fear, he reclaimed authority over his own mind. This is why discipline feels painful at first, because you are forcing higher intelligence to override primitive survival coding. And this is where true transformation begins. Modern neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to physically rewire itself through repeated action. In simple terms, what you repeatedly do, your brain increasingly becomes. When weakness is repeated, weakness becomes automatic. When discipline is repeated, discipline becomes identity. This is why Kensei demanded relentless repetition, not for punishment, for rewiring. Every dawn Tishi rose without negotiation. He was not merely building habit, he was reconstructing neural architecture. Every act of controlled suffering weakened old patterns. Every repetition forged new ones. Slowly, the boy who once collapsed in hesitation began acting automatically with strength. This was Musashi's hidden science. You do not defeat weakness through emotion. You defeat it through repetition so consistent that strength becomes unconscious. The warrior does not rely on willpower forever. He trains until discipline replaces negotiation entirely. Tishi was no longer fighting himself each morning. He was becoming someone for whom action was natural. And that is the ultimate transformation, when discipline is no longer something you force, but something your nervous system has become. The ancient samurai called this mastery. Modern science calls it rewiring, but both reveal the same eternal truth. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your conditioning. Chapter 7. The Fire That Remains. And so Tishi's story was never truly about a duel. It was never merely about swords, ronin, or the brutal traditions of samurai. It was about something far older, far deeper, far more relevant to your life today. It was about the war between your higher self and the weaker version of you that seeks comfort. Because every man faces this battle, not once, but every single morning. The battle between discipline and delay, between purpose and distraction, between the life you could build and the comfort that quietly destroys it. Tishi learned what most never do, that true strength is not measured by talent, not by status, not by motivation, but by what remains when comfort is stripped away, when excuses die, when pain arrives, when no one is watching. Rise without negotiation, move without emotion, train when you do not want to, eliminate the unnecessary, sit with pain, guard your focus like a fortress, live without approval, control all things, accept death, hold the line. These 10 disciplines were never just teachings, they were weapons. Weapons against hesitation, weapons against weakness, weapons against the internal collapse that destroys so many before life ever truly tests them. And now, they are yours. Because the truth is, your modern battles are not so different from Tishi's ancient ones. Your battlefield may not be a dueling circle, but it is your alarm clock, your distractions, your addictions, your unfinished goals, your fear, your endless negotiations with yourself. This is where warriors are forged now, in ordinary moments, in silent decisions, in whether you remain when everything inside you wants to quit. So here is your challenge for the next 30 days. Choose one discipline, only one. Wake immediately, train daily, control your attention, sit with discomfort, remove one weakness, and do it every day. No negotiation, no excuses, no performance. Because transformation does not happen when inspiration strikes. It happens when identity changes, one repeated act at a time. This is how weak men become dangerous. This is how distracted minds become unbreakable. This is how the fire is protected. Do not wait until your life collapses before you change. Do not wait until regret outweighs discipline. Do not wait until another year vanishes beneath hesitation. Begin now, because every day you delay strengthens the enemy within, and every disciplined action sharpens the warrior. Thank you for watching until the very end. Very few make it this far. That matters, because it means some part of you is already seeking more. But remember this: knowledge alone is worthless without action. Wisdom without application is performance. So now ask yourself, which discipline will you begin today? Which weakness will you finally confront? Who could you become if you stopped betraying yourself every morning? The path has been shown. The principles are timeless. The fire is waiting. All that remains is your decision to walk. Do not wait for tomorrow. Do not wait for motivation. Do not wait for perfect conditions. Start now. Forge yourself now. And as the warriors before you understood, be present, walk with honor, and follow the path.